Sanctions alone, or the continuation and strengthening of those that have already been applied thus far, cannot be viewed as an end in itself. Although impactful to some extent in the short term, I do not believe that in the long term, economic sanctions as a matter of unilateral economic policy would yield the ultimate desirable result, especially while the political status quo prevails. So if not diplomacy, military action, or sanctions, what option remains? We must increase the domestic level of pressure on the regime. All arrows point to what I have been arguing for years: empowerment. It is only by empowering the people of Iran that we can hope for a far less costly and far more legitimate process of political change in Iran. This is why I have such a strong commitment and dedication to a campaign of nonviolence, civil resistance, and disobedience. History shows that there is no force more powerful than that of a willing and committed people. As demonstrated already, Iranians have the ability, desire, and courage to wield that power, especially if they are backed by the international community at every level, every turn, and every chance. Since June of 2009, we have witnessed the powerful effects of a pro-democracy movement across the country. All of this has occurred without leadership, structure, or assistance from the international community. Only social media, mobile phones, and word of mouth. Imagine how much more could be done if the world focused on lending a hand to the courageous women and men who have been demanding their rights in the streets of Iran. The time has come to engage not the regime, but the people of Iran, and to strengthen their movement by giving them better means of communication and organization. For those who argue that the situation in Iran is now a fact of life and a fait accompli, and that we have to adapt to it in order to have ties to this emerging market, I say this: it is a far wiser position to not engage with a regime that is bound to collapse at some point, and instead engage with the aspirations of the opposition. It doesn't make sense to continue engaging with this regime that has proven to be a failure across the board. It has driven our economy to the brink of collapse and brought talks of war to our doorstep. Iran will only achieve its true potential under a different form of government, which is why I advocate so strongly for secular democracy. Therefore, it is the people and the potential of Iran that you have to invest in, rather than to engage the existing order. Ladies and gentlemen, time is of the essence. The clock is ticking, and our window is closing. Diplomacy cannot be open-ended. War must be avoided. Capitulation is unthinkable. There can only be one real solution. The moment has come for the world to invest in the people of Iran themselves. Change from within and at the hand of the Iranian people is the only legitimate and the least costly solution. I know my compatriots are doing all they can with great passion, sense of duty, and sacrifice. Do heed their call and let them know that they are not alone. To the students of Johns Hopkins, I encourage you to raise awareness on this campus and join with other student movements across the world that are bringing visibility to the human rights abuses and lack of freedom in Iran. To the faculty and media, I encourage them to analyze and write about the disastrous governance of this regime and the demands of our freedom-seeking citizens and our civil society. There's much to cover. If we all unite in our voices and efforts, Iran will one day, and hopefully very soon, return from this dark journey into the light. Thank you very much. to answer to some questions as we have time tonight. Thank you.
Hello? Good? Okay. So you say that the revolution needs to come from within the people and that it should be from other countries. So to what extent should the international community support the Iranian people so that it doesn't seem like we're taking over their revolution?
Well, obviously, thank you for the question. When you look at the history of recent changes, and I think in particular the example of Eastern Europe, countries that were behind the Iron Curtain, there was indeed a great degree of solidarity and support from the free world to the societies behind that Iron Curtain, without having to interfere or mingle in deciding any outcome for them. The tacit support for freedom of expression, for liberty, for anything ranging from what happened in Poland with Palestine, solidarity movement and so on, Václav Havel, Czech Republic, and so many countries. It was this unwavering support that gave the people a sense of hope and not being abandoned, if you will. The biggest challenge in that decade, of course, was standing up to the Soviet Union and this situation. When you're dealing with totalitarian regimes, it is difficult to expect people of those nations to have complete freedom of action. Right now, as I speak, there's no way that the regime will permit any kind of visible structure of organization or opposition to itself, and will do everything to start to question and repress it. Without some degree of solidarity and a sense of being heard, or at least being accounted for, in terms of be able to further organize and structure themselves, the task will become much more difficult. As I mentioned in my speech earlier, technology today provides us with better means of communications. That dialogue, among other things, is perhaps the most crucial aspect of understanding exactly what it is that help can be useful and what it is that it could be counterproductive. And who better than the recipients of such help to be the first one to tell you in which way you can help them. So that engagement, that dialogue that I was referring to, is instrumental in permitting everyone to understand that if the intent is to help, and I'm sure it is, to find out the best way in which people actually help the process rather than hurt it. And nobody better than the people who are within the trenches right now will be able to tell you how. What I'm trying to do here is to create as many means possible to make sure such a dialogue does begin. There's a true assessment of how world governments, or for that matter nations, can be of help, and in that way to provide that vehicle that has, over the past 31 years and counting, almost non-existent, and the time has come to find other solutions to, first of all, engage, and then finally what way we can actually help the process. I do one from each side, so it's fine.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming to Hopkins. I always admire your analysis and some issues. I have a question. I'm happy that you talked about foreign policy. How do you see the relationship of Iran to Arab countries and Israel if you were president of the country, let's say 10 years from now?
Well, first of all, I think it would be